We mentioned the article on SB Nation, and let's talk to Bill Connelly now, who wrote that on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline. Bill, welcome to BYU Sports Nation.
Thanks for having me.
How often do you get confused for the actor Billy Connelly?
Well, I encourage it, really. I mean, his hair, his accent are way better than mine, so I'm all for any confusion there.
Absolutely.
Especially when you're trying to get like discounts or maybe trying to get ahead of a
show up at Hollywood
line.
parties.
Right, yeah. Oh, that stuff.
That's right. I was the voice from Brave, can't you tell?
There you go. There's another reference for you, Brian.
Yep, all right.
So enjoyed the article. Always love your stuff. Love the breakdowns of BYU football. And we'll dive into the specifics, but overall, just kind of your general thoughts of BYU football going into 2017.
You know, it's really hard. I mean, you can tell from the piece itself, it's kind of hard sometimes to develop a deeper opinion of where BYU is headed other than, hey, they're going to split the games against the good teams. They're going to beat the bad teams. They're going to win 8, 9, 10 games and call it a day. But it is interesting this year with the transition in certain areas of the field, the passing game, the defensive front. You can kind of talk yourself into those things maybe not mattering very much and being able to overcome those things. And then you might be looking at a good year. But that early schedule is really tricky if you've got a semi-new quarterback, I guess, and new top receivers.
Bill, does playing an independent schedule make it tough to get 10-plus wins? Or is it a scenario where us as BYU fans have to hope that we can get to 8 or 9 and just keep it at that?
Right. I mean, that's the trade-off. Basically, if it's hard to get to 10 wins, if being like about a top 40 caliber program every year doesn't quite do it, that means you're playing a pretty tough schedule, which as an independent, that's kind of what you would prefer. I mean, you could load up on lesser teams in theory and win 10, 11 games a year, but it might feel a little empty. It might not include as many big home games. And so that's the trade-off. Obviously, you want to break through at least occasionally, but the fact that you can be a top 40 program and not just assume 10 wins means you're scheduling pretty well.
Bill Connelly of SB Nation's on BYU Sports Nation. He wrote an article that came out yesterday previewing the BYU football season. We've been discussing kind of the word steady and the good and bad of that. What are your thoughts relative to the steadiness of BYU football's program?
Well, this is kind of an existential thing that a lot of programs and their fans especially go through. I call it Glenn Mason territory sometimes, where you've got a long-term head coach at least. Obviously, BYU doesn't anymore, and they just switched that. But, if you've had kind of the same level of success for a while, even if it's a solid level, your fans get anxious, and that tends to lead to sometimes some kind of rash decision-making. You decide to go ahead and take a risk, do something different just to see if you can switch things up. A lot of times that results in 4-win seasons, and so you have to be very careful. Obviously, with BYU, Bronco Mendenhall moving on, it was a chance at least for kind of a new blood, new energy, et cetera. And maybe the fact that BYU looked very, very BYU last year with a new head coach, with new coordinators, maybe that's a sign that there's something to build on here, and a new coaching staff can build on it.
Bill, what record do you project BYU to have in its 13-game regular season in 2017?
Yeah, it's pretty easy to talk yourself into 9 or 10 wins there, and if you just judge if you just look at the schedule and assume splitting against the good teams and beating up the bad, then you get to 9 or 10 wins pretty easily. But there are a lot of relative toss-ups on the schedule, and so it really, I think, depends on how quickly the passing game especially can kind of click early on with the new receivers, or the receivers playing new roles, I should say. That's going to be a big thing there because, I mean, playing LSU, Utah, Wisconsin, Utah State, and Boise State, and then Mississippi State all back-to-back, that's really tricky if your passing game isn't producing a certain level and you have to lean on what is probably going to be an efficient run game but not a very big play run game. That's a tricky thing to ask, so the passing game better click.
So 8-5, is that what I read correctly from your projections?
I was thinking 13-0, which is
yeah, the projections are saying about 7-8 wins. It's not hard to see 9-10, but it really does depend on how quickly that rhythm gets established.
Where do you see an area where BYU really needs to get better to get to a 10-plus win kind of season?
I do think, I mean, just looking at the specific teams, looking at LSU and Wisconsin especially, gonna need to be able to move the ball consistently, and that probably means big plays in this case, because moving the ball consistently against LSU and Wisconsin, and then Utah to a certain degree as well, is very, very hard to do. BYU had very few big plays last year. Most of them came from Jamal Williams, and so there's gonna be a need for those chunk plays, and without that, then you're going to be looking at needing to win the turnover battle, something that can flip the field and create some easy scores. There were not a lot of easy scores last year, and that can make you or break you against teams like that.
Bill, I think one of everybody's life goals is to find their place in this universe, in this world, in the small little town that they're in. What is BYU's place in college football as an independent?
I mean, it's hard to, give you like a three-word answer there, but I mean, BYU has been one of the steadiest, for better or worse, a physical top 40 team that can occasionally light up the scoreboard. Kind of hasn't as much in recent years, but I mean, I think as an independent, they're going to bring a pretty decent audience to the table, both in person and on TV, and they're going to challenge a bunch of power conference teams, and power conference teams now seemingly being willing to take on harder non-conferences in the name of standing out for the College Football Playoff Committee and all that, it gives BYU a very good opportunity to play some really good teams early in the year and establish themselves. They just need to win a few more of these games, obviously. A game like the LSU game, for instance, especially being on a neutral field, that's kind of the missing step here. Right now, BYU is a competitive program that will play you well into the fourth quarter and have a 30, 40, 50% chance of beating you. But one of these seasons, I think if BYU wants to truly stand out, you do need to figure out how to make a nice run here and get out of that kind of 8-9 win rhythm.
Bill Connelly of SB Nation is on BYU Sports Nation. What goes into your win probability? Because I look at each game and I go through, and it's fun to look at, BYU's more likely to win that game than the rest. 55% against Utah is probably a number that fans like more than dislike. What goes into that number?
Yeah, I mean, that's just purely based on the projected difference in the ratings. So Utah's projected 45th, BYU's 46th. The game's in Provo, so you apply the home field advantage, you get a slight advantage BYU's way. Obviously, the win probabilities don't care about previous results. That would be a really weird model. But basically, yeah, it's that S&P Plus ranking, which looks at projected efficiency and explosiveness and things of that nature, and you get it spits out a win probability there for you. So you do see a lot of relative toss-ups early in the year with, Utah being 55%, Utah State being 59%, Boise 47%, and then you see later in the year they turn into 70s and 80s pretty quickly.
Baseball is a different sport in many ways, but has embraced sabermetrics and all kinds of analysis and shifts and all this stuff. Is football embracing in any way next-level analysis to change the game in that way?
Well, what's funny about football coaches is, I mean, A, to a man, they'll say stats are for losers, but B, they will say that, or they will go about their job as analytically as any coach in any sport. The way they're looking at tendencies and trying to figure out from previous evidence how to create an advantage, that is analytics to a certain degree. They're just doing it with their eyes and their experience instead of numbers. I think numbers are slowly working their way into the equation. I think a lot of coaches are willing to kind of embrace certain things, but it is not to a point yet where it's, like baseball, the focus on base percentage or the corner threes and the threes and layups and free throws, that whole strategy with basketball now. It's not to that stage yet, but I think the groundwork is at least starting to get there. People are beginning to be willing to embrace it. They just need to be told how.
This is very interesting to me, Bill. So I played here in 2009, 2010. Bronco Mendenhall was the head coach, and when he took over the defense halfway through the year 2010, my whole game and knowledge just changed because of that, just because of stats and going off of data and numbers. And I remember he would coach us, playing during prep for practice. He would say, "Hey, look, when an offense is in this personnel between the 20 and 30-yard line, they're going to run, these types of plays, and these are the percentages, out of these 5 plays, here are the top percentages." And then he would go and break it down further and say, okay, if it's second down, here's the 2 plays. If it's third down, here's the 3 plays. And literally, we would, break that down pre-snap based off of his coaching and teaching. And at the snap of the ball, I would know exactly what the play was and, be able to jump a route, get an interception. And that was all of us across the board. So, if coaches like Bronco are implementing this, I mean, what do you think has to happen for more coaches to coach and implement these types of practices?
Well, I think, what's funny is, I mean, that's coaches wouldn't consider that stats necessarily. Stats are, a reporter asking him, why, 383 passing yards per game, you're giving up quite a bit there. Do you need to fix that pass defense? That's why they say stats are for losers. But, yeah, I mean, the tendency data they come up with is very, very rich, and they all do it to some degree. The other part about analytics, though, is, I mean, there's an aspect of tendencies involved, and there's the play calling, the game theory aspect, when to go for it on fourth down, all that. But that's the last step of team building. That's the last step of being a good team. And so analytics go into recruiting. They go into player development. You have all this extra player tracking data now. There's all this data. Teams are swimming in data. They just kind of need to have a little more assistance, I think, in how to swim around in that data and figure out how to take the most advantage of it.
You mentioned Johnny Linehan in the article, and you said he's been pretty efficient. Just keep him out of ill-advised fake punts. Do you think that there will be another fake punt from Johnny Linehan this season?
It would catch people off guard. They're probably assuming that it would never happen again. I just would recommend it not happen at like the 1 yard line. But midfield, give him a chance to succeed and let him get that monkey off his back.
We know you know what you're talking about when you mention Johnny Linehan, fake punts, and everybody's favorite freshman, Mo Longy. We can't wait to see him. He's on campus now, so we can't wait to see him this year.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, we have at SB Nation, we have the Piesman Award every December for the best big man play in college football. It would really, you probably just need to go ahead and fire Ty Detmer if he doesn't set up some sort of tackle-eligible play at some point.
He is unfireable, having won the Heisman here.
That's true.
Bill, we appreciate the time. Great stuff. We look forward to reading more of your stuff during the summer. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.